Those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. This is Success with Srini.
Welcome back to Success with Srini. On the podcast today, I'm answering a question that has come from a listener of this podcast. His name is Vijay, and he's asking a question that is related to my June 1st podcast. In fact, I'm recording this on June 1st. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to send this recording to Vijay. And if he approves, then this is going to be available as a podcast on my podcast. And I'm going to release this on a future date. If not, then I will not. So I'm going to wait for his approval to do it. Vijay says, "Hi Srini, this is Vijay. I had started to listen to your podcast from mid-March. Thanks for doing this. It is immensely helpful. Regarding today's episode, which is how to prepare for the opportunity, I did exact something. Identified my opportunities, identified my gaps in skill, put together a plan and tried to execute it. It all went well for a month, but now when I get to my focused block time for doing the prep, I'm not able to do it. I don't know how to put it. I know I just need to start the process, but not able to do it. Could you suggest what to do to get over this stubborn resistance?" Brilliant question, Vijay. In fact, for everybody who is listening to this podcast, hoping they will be, Vijay is referring to the June 1st podcast, June 1st, 2022 podcast, where I talked about how to prepare for the opportunity, as he refers to that. I said talent, time, and team are the three ingredients that you need. Obviously, you need to figure out the gaps in your skills. Then you need to make an investment in terms of time and money. Both time and money are investments. And I also suggested that you need to have the support, ideally the support of a team. I suggest that please go to June 1st of 2022 and listen to that day's podcast where I talk in detail. I kind of illustrate this. Now, as a part of the podcast, I talked about 5 things that you need to successfully overcome this challenge. And Vijay, I'm directly talking to you on this now. You're referring to a stubborn resistance. Now, there are different reasons this could be happening. The first and the foremost, in the podcast, I talked about purpose, initiative, imagination, discipline, and courage. These are the 5 ingredients. I hope you heard that. So on the very top is purpose and the very bottom is courage. Now, every time somebody experiences a resistance towards anything that they want to achieve, these two, the top one purpose and the bottom one courage, these two are compromised. In my observation, I could be wrong, but these are the 2 reasons. You need to focus on purpose. Maybe the purpose is not clear. That's why the purpose is not well defined. The meaning is not well attached. And that is why when it comes down to execution, the brain is defeating itself. There is a possibility of that. Maybe that you have a tendency to wait for the wind to kind of come beneath the wings before you take off. Most people do. Most people, they just don't find themselves in the groove. They wait for something to happen before they become serious in executing the work. And there is also could be an element of procrastination happening there too. You should check into that. Now, I want to also, when I referred to the term called support and a team, is it possible that the work that you are trying to do during your block time, can that work be outsourced or can that work be done by somebody else? Maybe you need somebody to talk to you during the time. Maybe you need some different kind of an accountability. Maybe the accountability in itself is weak. Could be. And I gave an example of something like this on this podcast many months ago, maybe a few years ago. This was back in 2004, 2005. I was getting ready to put together a course on real estate investing. And I was thinking, and I was never really putting it together. And months went by. Days went by, weeks went by, months went by, and almost a year went by. And this was becoming very hard. Actually, a couple of years went by. This was there dominant on my mind, but I was not doing anything about it. And the way I broke the cycle, the resistance, was I built an accountability into myself. What I did is I went to a very expensive hotel in San Jose. I booked a room and I took my camera there and I said, I'll not leave the room unless I record this entire course. I'll not leave the room. So the room was costing me about $200 some odd a day. And I was now stuck in the room to just get this done. Not a silly experiment. Later on, what I have done with all my thereafter all the future courses was do seminars, like spend $1,000 to $2,000 over a weekend, put a seminar together, record the seminar, becomes a course. That was the evolution from that point on. But this is how I broke my stubborn resistance. I want you to start building some accountability if you think that your purpose and your courage are correct. Okay, if the purpose and courage are correct, I want you to build accountability in the middle. If not, I think this is mostly there's an element of procrastination going on. That's what it is, because it's unusual that somebody has identified the opportunity, understood the gaps, understood what needs to be done with skills, and there is a plan in place, and kind of something is happening when it comes to execution. It's not right. So one way to also decode this is go back in the sequence backwards, which is my plan correct? Is my gap analysis correct? Is the opportunity that I have identified, is this correct? So I can go trace backwards, and that will eventually lead to the purpose, which is it even, am I right to begin with? Right? You can also ask that question. So give it a try, the way I'm approaching this. See if this helps. But I think this is an accountability issue. You need to build some serious accountability. So you need to isolate yourself from just not blocking the time, but you need to really physically place yourself to get something done. Change the environment, change the location, shift the time blocks around to different parts of the day, and find your optimal mental state to execute the time block. Hopefully this is helpful. I think I answered your question. If not, let me know, and then we will go back and forth on this. Now, if you're listening to this podcast, as a podcast, you're listening to this, maybe you have an idea on how to deal with this. Now, I suggest that you go back to the June 1st podcast, listen to it, and listen to today's episode. And if you have some suggestions that you want to share, let me know. Text me on 888-818-0404, and I will make sure that your suggestions go back to Vijay. Okay, that's all for now. Wherever you are, be safe, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye now.